My ex-girlfriend left me over a misunderstanding, blocked me completely, and disappeared. Now she's back 7 years later with a shocking demand. Hello, Reddit. This is going to be kind of long because there's a lot of context. So first and foremost, I'll tell you guys a little about my ex-girlfriend. My ex, Cindy, 30 now, 23 when we were together, and I were together for 4 years. We met in college and stayed together throughout. We even got an apartment together once we graduated and lived together for a year before she broke things off with me abruptly and without an explanation. Cindy was 1 year older than me and a senior in college. I was too shy to go talk to her, and she's the one who had to initiate the relationship. She asked me out. She said, "I love you" first after 6 months of being together, and she was the one who suggested that we move in together after college. She was a wonderful girlfriend. For those who can't tell, this is sarcasm in every way but one. She was just very insecure. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was because I never really took initiative in the relationship or something similar, but she was just always very insecure and jealous. She'd hate it when I spoke to other girls, no matter who they were. So, after a couple of fights, I cut off all my friends who happened to be women because Cindy was more important to me than being friends with other women. And it wasn't just friends from college who I stopped talking to. I also stopped speaking to my school friends who'd been friends with me for more than 5 years at that point. I'm back to talking to them because Cindy's not in my life anymore, and my wife's cool with my friends regardless of gender. But back then, I was just friends with my guy friends, and I wasn't even allowed to go out with them to have a boys' night because Cindy believed that it would just be an excuse for us to all go to bars, get wasted, and pick up girls. I didn't think that was fair to me because she'd forbid me from seeing anyone without her because of how insecure she was. But I couldn't see how wrong it all was because I was too in love with her. And I felt like she was too. She'd tell me all the time about how much she loved me and said that she couldn't live without me, she couldn't imagine a future without me and whatnot. So I stayed despite everything because I wanted to marry her and be with her. That's all I wanted. But with time, it became more and more difficult to stay with her since she just kept getting more suspicious and weird about me. By the time we were living together, I couldn't do anything without her breathing down my neck. She checked my phone all the time, she'd monitor my movements, and if I didn't update her on my location at all times, then she'd threaten to lock me out when I came back home. So by now, you guys have some idea about how toxic our relationship had turned by the time we broke up. I still somehow found it in me to stay with her, but then, surprisingly, she's the one who broke up with me, and it was over something insane because it was just a small misunderstanding that led to our breakup. One day, my sister visited me without announcing her visit, which she usually did to make sure Cindy didn't suspect me and think that maybe I was having other girls over. Cindy wasn't at home when my sister Lauren, 33 Fahrenheit, dropped by. She was at a friend's place because she was allowed to meet her friends, and I wasn't allowed to suspect her. Anyhow, Lauren surprised me by dropping in unannounced, and I was so surprised to see her that I didn't even text Cindy to tell her that Lauren had come over, which I would have usually done. We got to talking, and we spent around 2 hours together at home. But then all of a sudden, she received a call from her boss and had to leave to go back to work urgently. The thing that caused my breakup was, unfortunately, the lipstick that Lauren left behind. She had taken it out to reapply it before she headed back to work. She was in a rush to leave, so she forgot it on the couch, and it was so small that I didn't notice it either. Then Cindy came back home a little after Lauren left, and she seemed happy until she found the little lipstick. I still remember it as clear as day. She sat on the couch and sprang back up as soon as she sat, then grabbed the lipstick that she'd sat down on. And I instantly knew that I was screwed because there was no way in hell that she was going to let this one slide. I tried to downplay it and told her the truth instantly. I told her that Lauren had come over to visit during her lunch hours and she'd taken out the lipstick to reapply it because she had to go back to work. I explained that she was rushing to go back home, so she'd forgotten to put it back in her purse. But just as I expected, Cindy didn't buy even a word of what I told her for a couple of reasons. Like I said, she brought up that Lauren usually texts Cindy and me both in the group chat that has the 3 of us before she comes over. She hadn't done that this time. And secondly, she thought that it was very unlikely that Lauren would take out her lipstick to reapply it in our house because my sister wasn't really one for makeup. She was convinced that I'd had another girl over and absolutely flipped out. And when I say flipped out, I don't mean it lightly. She really went psychotic, started screaming at me, cursing at me, and randomly started throwing things to the floor. First, she went for the cushions. Then she threw some books to the floor while raging at me. But then it crossed a line when she grabbed the TV remote and threw it right at me. I ducked and managed to avoid it, but I knew that I needed to get the hell out of there. So I ran to our bedroom and locked myself in. I didn't have my phone with me, so I couldn't call anyone for help, and I just had to stay there by myself for like an hour while she went on and on about how I had betrayed her. She was screaming like a banshee outside the room, and I'll say that I was pretty scared. Then finally, the screaming sort of calmed down, and I finally gathered the courage to leave the room and check outside. I noticed that she was gone and had left the door wide open. I didn't try to talk to her or contact her in any way for the next couple of hours because I figured that she had just gone on a walk to clear her head or something. But then when she didn't even come home by midnight, I started to get a little worried and decided I was going to try and call her. To my surprise, I noticed that the call didn't go through, and after the first couple of tries, I realized that she had blocked me. I tried to text her, but with no luck because I was blocked there as well, and she had also removed me from all her social media accounts. I was paranoid and tried to call her friends, but they didn't answer my calls either. And I guess they had blocked me too. For the next few weeks, I just kept trying to contact her in any way I could, but she just did not answer. After almost a month of trying to track her down, I gave up because I realized that she did not want to be found, not by me at least. I was completely lost without her, and the next few months were really the toughest of my life. I don't know how I got through it. All I would do was just go to work, come back, miss her, and pretend that things were fine. People tried to convince me that I was better off without her, but I just didn't feel it. I moved out of that apartment after a year. I tried to stay there because I thought that if Cindy ever came back, she would be able to find me if I remained in that apartment. But after I moved out and had a new address, I gave up any hope of reconciling with Cindy. We never got any closure, and that was my biggest disappointment so far. I was pretty depressed and tried not to talk to women after my breakup because I didn't want to feel like I was betraying Cindy. That changed when I met my current wife, Amy, 27 Fahrenheits. She was a colleague at work and she was really sweet to me when I was new, and not just me, but she was sweet to every single person in the office. She was beautiful, intelligent, and had a brilliant personality. So despite my best efforts, I couldn't help but fall for her within a few months. I had promised myself that I would never put myself through another relationship again after Cindy, but that all changed when I met Amy. We've been together for almost 4 years and have been married for 2 now. I'm at my happiest with her, and I had honestly totally forgotten about Cindy, until recently when she made a sudden reappearance in my life. 7 years had passed since our breakup, or rather her just walking out on me like I meant nothing to her, just over a petty misunderstanding. Last weekend, my wife and I were just chilling at home when she suddenly rang our doorbell. I was the one to open the door, and before I could even register what I was. Seeing in front of me, she dragged the little boy, around 7 years old, right in front of me and demanded that I pay 7 years of child support immediately. She completely tore into me before I even had a chance to speak and started yelling at me about how she had spent the last 7 years of her life trying to track me down so our son could finally have a father. I just stood there silently while she yelled at me, accused me of being an absent father, and demanded that I pay child support to her and cough up the amount that I had managed to avoid for the last 7 years. I had no idea how to respond to any of that and just stood there like an idiot while she continued to scream at me. Obviously, it was not my fault. I had even waited for her to come back for 1 year after she had left abruptly. She was the one who had abandoned me and our relationship, and I was 100% sure that it was not even my son who she brought along with her. The reason I was not saying anything was because I was literally too shocked to say a word. Noticing that I had been gone for a couple of minutes, Amy decided to come out and check what was going on. And that's when the situation turned around because as soon as she saw my wife, Cindy's face lost all color, and it appeared that she knew she was screwed. At the time, I was not aware of what was happening, but all I knew was that Cindy was not okay when she saw my wife, and even Amy seemed really surprised to see Cindy there. Before I could say anything, Amy and Cindy started arguing, and I couldn't make out what they were yelling at each other about. But I knew that things were bad, and they already knew each other from before. They were at each other's throats, verbally attacking each other and calling each other every derogatory name in the book. And I stood there like a silent spectator along with the other little boy, trying to figure out what was going on. Then finally, Amy brought out the big guns and said that if Cindy didn't leave, then she was going to call the cops, and that would not be good for her. Cindy did not look happy about it, but ultimately she left after shooting us both dirty looks and cursing us out some more. When she heard that Amy threatened to call the cops again, and I'm not even kidding, Cindy literally made a run for it. She grabbed her son as soon as Amy mentioned the cops and got out of there as quickly as she could. I had no idea what just happened, but I figured that Amy would tell me everything after Cindy left. Now, this is where things took a really weird turn because as soon as Cindy left, Amy turned towards me and started screaming at me, saying things like, "How could you do this to me? And I can't believe you hid this from me." I still didn't say anything and just stood there looking at her really confused because that's how I felt. I was really confused. And the things she was accusing me of also did not make any sense to me. She was acting as if I had hidden my relationship with Cindy from her on purpose or something, but I had not done that. I'd always been very open with Amy and told her everything about my ex, so I did not understand why she was reacting the way she was. The only thing that I hadn't done was show her a picture of Cindy ever. But that wasn't on purpose. It was mostly because I had lost my phone before I moved into my new house, and it had all my pictures with Cindy on it. So when I lost that, I lost a lot of pictures that I had with her. I had also deleted most of my pictures with her off my social media because it was a very painful reminder of what our relationship used to be and how she had just disappeared without an explanation. So to sum it up, I deleted my pictures with her on my social media, and then I lost my phone. So I lost all the pictures that I had with her because I hadn't backed them up anywhere else either. I never tried to get them back because I just thought that it was a good thing that I didn't have any pictures with her anymore, since it just meant one less thing that would remind me of her. Sure, we had a couple of group photos that were still up on my friends' social media accounts, but I made them take it all down because I didn't want to see myself with her anymore. I would have shown those pictures to Amy had she ever asked for it, but she didn't. And it just seemed like too much work to go digging for group photos or photos of me and Cindy to show to Amy when she didn't even seem interested in seeing the woman, so I never got around to showing Amy how Cindy looked. After that incident, Amy said that she wanted to leave and go live with her parents for a while so that she could cool down and clear her head before she came back. In spite of me begging her to stay, she still left because she said that she just did not want to be in the same room as me for a while and really needed her own space to deal with this. I didn't even know what this was because she did not give me an explanation, and it just felt like a repeat of whatever had taken place with me and Cindy. I was devastated for that entire day, and it wasn't until the next day that I finally made some calls to try and figure out what exactly was going on. I called her parents first, but they told me that I should have told them about Cindy before instead of just springing it on her like this. They fried me for a while and then disconnected the call without giving me any explanation. So then I called Amy's oldest sister, my sister-in-law, who was the only other person likely to have an explanation. I was completely lost, and she was my last hope. So when she answered my call, I wasted no time in explaining what had happened, and that's when she told me the real story of how Amy and Cindy knew each other. Apparently, Cindy and Amy were cousins. Cindy's real name was Cinia. They're not her real names. I'm just using similar examples, which was something I had never used to refer to her, which is why Amy had never made the connection. Apparently, Cindy had always been a big bully who had pretty much ruined Amy's childhood. Things had been bad between them for a while, but it all came to a head on Amy's 18th birthday. Cindy hooked up with Amy's longtime boyfriend of almost 3 years. My in-laws were pissed, and Amy's mother, Cindy's mother's sister, got into a huge fight over Cindy's behavior. Obviously, both parents took their own kid's side, and so their family stopped speaking to each other. They were completely cut off from one another. But the bullying did not end there because Cindy decided that she was going to take revenge on her cousin by spreading nasty rumors about her online. It got to a point where their parents had to get involved all over again, and this time Cindy finally decided that she was going to leave Amy alone, but only because her parents had told her to cut it out. That was the last time the two cousins spoke to each other, and finally they met about a couple of days ago because of me. After the phone call with my sister-in-law, I finally figured out why Amy had been so mad when she saw Cindy at our door. Apparently, the meeting with Cindy, or Cinia as Amy knew her, had brought up painful memories for both of us. I spoke to her after that phone call, and I guess my sister-in-law must have talked to her because she finally talked to me instead of just letting the phone ring. I told her that I understood where she was coming from, but it wasn't exactly my fault that we hadn't been able to find out about this common link between us. Mostly because she'd never asked or shown an interest in Cindy, and rightfully so, since it was all in the past anyway. And she was the future for me. Had she asked me about Cindy even once, then I would have instantly shown her a picture, and we wouldn't have had to wait for so long to find out about this connection between us. I tried to explain my side of the story to her rationally, but for some reason, she still thinks that I am the bad guy here, and that I should have known more about my past relationship so she would have asked me about it as well, and then we would have been able to uncover this sooner. I just couldn't see how any of this was my fault, and I told her so as well. So she got really mad at me and stopped speaking to me after telling me that I was being stupid and self-involved. She then told me that she had a horrible history with Cindy, and she expected me to understand and respect that, to which I replied that I had a horrible past with her as well. But I didn't see Amy trying to be understanding of that. I guess that really offended her because she told me that I won the Olympics for having the worst past ever, and then she hung up. Since then, she has not been responding to any of my calls or texts, and I feel like I really screwed up here. My wife usually never loses her cool like this, so this was definitely a very touchy and sensitive subject for her. But I feel like she needs to realize that this is a sensitive thing for me as well, so it's not really fair to put the entire blame on me when I don't even understand what my fault here was exactly. I'm just glad that I haven't heard from Cindy yet, because I'm sure that if she continues to try and get involved in my life, then this mess will only get bigger. Anyway, AITA for not telling my wife enough about my toxic ex-girlfriend? Update 1. Hi guys. So first of all, thank you all for the comments that advised me on what to do here. I'm really thankful for everyone who had something to say. And for those of you who wanted to know if my wife had ever mentioned anything about the bullying before, no, she had not. She had never told me that she had been bullied relentlessly in the past, and I only found out about that part of her after the phone call with my sister-in-law. It wasn't my fault, I know, but I still took the initiative and decided to go see my wife at her parents' place. I wanted to make this relationship work, and I knew that if I wanted to be with her, then I would have to go and set things right, even if it wasn't my fault. Because it was us versus the problem, and not her versus me. Yesterday, I finally visited her after almost a week of not speaking to each other. Both my in-laws and Amy were pretty surprised to see me there, but I didn't wait for them to say anything. And as soon as the door had been opened, I went straight to Amy and gave her a big bear hug. She was taken aback, but she hugged me back, and we just held each other for a few minutes before we even said anything. This last week had been tough for both of us, and we knew we just wanted to be together. Who was right and who was wrong didn't even matter anymore. As soon as I broke away from the hug, she apologized to me and started crying immediately because apparently she had thought that she had lost me forever due to the meltdown that she had after Cindy's visit that day, and also because of the way she had been behaving after she left the house. She acknowledged that she had been totally unreasonable and irrational in dealing with the situation and just kept apologizing constantly. Her parents and I consoled her and calmed her down as she sobbed profusely. I was happy to see that she had realized that the way she had been acting was a little unfair to me. But at the same time, I also felt guilty for not reaching out to her earlier, since that is what really caused her to break down. When I finally visited her yesterday, after a while, once we talked things out, she packed up her stuff to come back home with me. And here we are, back home together. I wouldn't say that things have gone back to normal, but we're working on it and trying to make sense of everything that has happened in the last week, including Cindy's visit, which we still haven't been able to get to the bottom of, but we'll find out what that was all about as well. Update 2. Hey guys. So, we finally found out what Cindy was here for. No prizes for guessing that it was for money, which she had made very clear to us as soon as she arrived by demanding that I pay child support for a kid that barely seemed or felt like my own. Amy and my sister-in-law made several phone calls to get to the bottom of what was happening with her, since their families were not on speaking terms and hadn't been for several years. And they found out that the kid was not mine, obviously, but she had been dating some guy for a couple of years. In fact, I think she had even been two-timing me for the last couple of months of our relationship. I don't have any proof for it, but it would sure make sense because she broke up with me over something really petty and then just cut me out of her life randomly like I was nothing to her. So it would add up if she had already had another guy lined up to take my place after she broke up with me. She was probably already pregnant by the time she left me, and she just needed a way out. The incident with my sister was the most convenient way for her to leave. Most people in her family were aware of her relationship with the other guy, but I was forbidden from speaking to her family unless she was with me. So I never found out about it, and never would have had she not made the terrible decision of showing up at my doorstep just to intimidate me into giving her money. As it turns out, the other guy had dumped her a couple of months ago, and since she had quit working after she had met the other guy and had her baby, she didn't really have any savings of her own and was running short on money. He'd done the same thing to her that she had done to me, just disappeared without any explanation. And now she was struggling to make ends meet. Her parents had refused to help her because they wanted to save enough to retire, and they wouldn't be able to do so if they started supporting her and her kid all of a sudden. Which is just crazy selfish, but it explains why she was so desperate. None of her family has heard from her after she ran into Amy at my house, but I'm sure that somebody will find her and either try to help her or just report her to the cops. Because from what I'm hearing, she has already been scamming a few people out of cash. Now, these are all just rumors, but they might as well be true because after what she tried to pull with me, I wouldn't really put it past her. Update 3. So, it's a late update, but Amy and I have decided to join couples counseling as well as individual therapy because I don't think we are dealing with her past as well as we thought we were. Just one appearance from Cindy had sent our lives crashing and burning. We couldn't let that happen again, so that's why we made the decision that we made. As for Cindy, we heard from a couple of relatives that she was now living with another guy whom she had met online just a few days ago. But he was already smitten with her and had offered to let her move in. Her parents were inconsolable because of how she had been acting, and even more so as she had told them that they were not allowed to meet their grandson anymore. Not to take her side, but honestly, what were her parents even expecting? They had turned her away when she needed them, and now they expected her to just be fine with it? That's just ridiculous. They had always enabled her behavior, be it with me or with Amy. Her parents weren't pleasant people, and clearly neither was she. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and she's living proof of it. Amy and I just feel bad that the poor kid has to suffer the consequences of her bad decisions.